Not even hijab. So, on one hand, we don't need to square the Bible with science in Christianity.
He already has.
But on the other hand, the Quran is in error, even though it claims not to be. So, you can stand there and do your macho routine and try to be the big man, but intellectually, hijab, you're beaten in your criticism of my faith and the defense of your own.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, listen to this. Listen to this.
Sorry, it's added 53 minutes. So what I'm going to do is like, I'm just going to take off like 53 minutes. Sorry? So it's added 3 minutes, so I'm just going to take 53 minutes.
Yeah, oh, okay, that's fine.
It still counts.
All right, no problem. 40 now. He says that he's trying to portray that the typical interpretation of the biblical corpus from an ecclesiastic and patristic perspective, the church fathers, was an allegorized understanding, and there is no further thing away from the truth, as understood by R.C. Hanson, a known scholar who wrote books and tracts attacking Origen of Alexandria on his allegorization and spiritualizing of the text, when actually there was no precedent before him and the Alexandrian school. People like Philo, who was a Jew, who also had the same kind of understanding. Moreover, now he mentioned Augustine. I said Augustine, and very important, Augustine came to the conclusion of the rotundity of the earth not because of the Bible, but despite it. He was an Aristotelian, and he came to that conclusion. My challenge to him was to find someone who uses the Bible and exegetes it to have a spherical or rotundity of the earth perspective. Number two. Number three, he says that he tries to imply that Augustine, he had the approach of Origen of Alexandria, which was an anomalous and aberrational approach in the exegetical method of the ecumenical church fathers, when actually the truth of the matter is he actually didn't even know that Augustine, who is a 5th century scholar, actually named his exegesis on a literal interpretation of the Bible. He had two. He had one called Against the Manichaeans, and he had one called On a Literal Interpretation of the Bible. So this guy doesn't even know his own books. I know more than him on his own books. Now listen to this. This is going to be a good night argument. I promise you today, he will go to sleep. He will go to sleep.
I am getting bored.
Okay, you will go to sleep. You are going to go to sleep. Just like I'm sure he has been many times in the ring. I'm going to say this to you once, and I'm going to say it to you very clearly. One time, Celsus, who was an apologist, a Greek apologist, he came to Origen of Alexandria, and he asked Origen of Alexandria, what do you say? How can you have a God that died on the cross?
Yeah.
Do you know how he responded? Do you know how he responded?
He's still on Origen.
He's reading off the top.
Do you know how he responded?
I'm going to take 55 minutes off.
He's definitely going to sleep.
Do you know how he responded? And you can see all these references, by the way. Go kbyh.co.uk and download my PDF on the truth of Islam. You'll find all the references there. He basically allegorized it. He said, we cannot say that all of the events relating to the crucifixion are true and live. Excuse me, stop. Can you stop? Can you stop talking? Yeah, I know, but I can't. You're not even listening to what I'm saying.
The point is, you're not even engaging with his point.
So, listen, look at me. Origen of Alexandria, when he was asked by Celsus, and this is referenced in my article on kbyh.co.uk, he was asked, what do you say of the crucifixion? What do you say of Jesus dying on the cross? He said it should not be seen as literal. In other words, the same spiritualizing, allegorical understanding that he employed with Genesis, he employed with the crucifixion. So if you want to have your cake, you can't eat it, because the reality of the situation, if you start saying that Genesis is an allegory, then you might as well say the whole crucifixion was an allegory. If you want to use the hermeneutical principles of Origen of Alexandria, it's over. You want to allegorize Genesis, go ahead and allegorize the crucifixion, just as Origen allegorized it, just as he metaphorized it. Why do you have it? What's your principle? What's your principle for allegorization? What is your hermeneutical principle? How can you allegorize one and not the other? Why? On what basis? Who gave you the authority to allegorize Genesis and not allegorize what? The crucifixion. Origen of Alexandria, when probed by Celsus, he allegorized the crucifixion, meaning your central tenets, the crucifixion, the resurrection, the ascension, and so on and so forth. All of that can be allegorized. And if it is allegorized, what remains of Christianity? It's all fallen apart. It's all gone. It becomes a myth, just like Hinduism. It becomes like the Greek mythology. It becomes like anything else. So there you have it. If you want to say it's allegorized, then you must allegorize. You must allegorize the crucifixion, because there is no authority that you may be granted. There is no authority that you, hermeneutical authority, yes, that you may have, yes, there's no hermeneutical authority that you have to allegorize one and not the other. And that's why it's done, and that's why you're finished, and that is why you can never stand in front of me. And you can have the rest of the time.
I'm giving rest of the time. I'll give you, because I gave him an extra 55 minutes, 55 seconds, sorry.
Right, so, I've got an extra, yeah, shall we do this last one? Okay, so am I speaking last? Yeah. Is this the last, am I speaking last?
No, you go now.
No.
You started.
You're the one that started, so he finished.
No, you started, because you laid out the parameters of science, so I go last. No, you started. You went, you talked, Hijab, you laid out the parameters of science first, remember? You laid out the parameters, you talked about the paradigm, so you started, so I have to finish.
When do we start the timing?
So I have to finish.
Do we start from that?
This is the last talk.
Fine.
Okay.
Last round.
Right, I'm speaking last. This is the last talk, and then we start. Right, are we ready? Are we ready?
It's your last round, and then afterwards?
No, this is the last talk. Done. After me. Done. Finished. Let's started.
If you're the only one speaking,
Are you ready? Are you ready? Right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully to the double standards that Hijab is asking you to work to. He is saying to you that you have to believe in a literal interpretation of Genesis. Why? Because of his quote of Origen. Now, he didn't actually quote Origen, he just threw his name into some statements. The fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, Origen is not a church father. So he's quoting the wrong source. Origen is called an ecclesiastical writer. Now notice that Hijab wanted me to pay attention, but he's not doing it now. So, ladies and gentlemen, we Christians are not committed to a literal interpretation of the Bible in toto. We don't do that. Our church fathers didn't do it. He's admitted as much. He said as much. He said that Augustine believed in a round earth. He said that. So we Christians don't need to defend every statement of the Bible as if it was literally true. Now he said that the description that Origen used was literal, that there was allegorical about the crucifixion. I know Origen's writings. I read Origen's writings. And he says that there are layers of interpretation to the scripture that include the literal and go beyond the literal. And he was talking about the metaphorical symbolism that we can pull from the crucifixion. He was not denying the historical event of the crucifixion. Hijab tried to mislead you. No, the Quran has made a number of factually false statements. And it doesn't matter with what bombacity Hijab prances around in this little theatre of ours, flexing his muscles, kissing his muscles, and trying to talk about beating people up intellectually. The reality is that his Quran has finished his religion, because his religion, his Quran, says that if it was from any other other than Allah, I would find errors therein. I would find contradictions. The Quran says bones became flesh. This contradicts embryology. The Quran says that the earth is flat. This contradicts our study of the world, which is clearly spherical. The Quran states that the sun sets in a puddle of mud. A puddle of mud. And it clearly doesn't set anywhere on earth. I have found errors in the Quran, and the only way that he gets around them is what? Is by saying, oh well, Muslim scholars knew better than their Quran. I agree, but so did the Greeks before Jesus know better than the Quran. He said, well, your church fathers didn't believe in the earth as being round from the Bible. But then he showed that those church fathers do believe in the circle of the earth. Do you honestly believe that they would uphold the idea of the circle of the earth in one hand, and then, as Christians, say that it contradicts the Bible? Of course they wouldn't. And why do they not see a contradiction? Because as the church fathers demonstrate consistently, the reading of the Bible is not meant to be a scientific text. It does not have to be read that way, nor does it have to be defended that way. And so his criticism of the Bible is misplaced, because it is not what we Christians believe. But he believes that every utterance of the Quran is true. And yet we have demonstrated that there are utterances of the Quran that are false. How many times does the Quran have to be wrong? Time. How many times does the Quran have to be wrong? Okay, I'll finish on this point then. How many times does the Quran have to be wrong before we say it is wrong? Once, twice, 3 times? You had 3 examples today. Only one will do. The reality is, bombastic as you are, Hijab, loud as you are, Hijab, you are intellectually scuppered because you are trying to defend a book that makes indefensible claims about itself. Okay, it's lovely talking to you, as always. No, we said that we were finishing on this talk. That's what
let me do one, I need to do one more.
Fair enough, one more round.
On the muddy pool one, Job chapter 1 verse 4 says the same thing, same exact thing. Job 1:4.
Wait, I need to time it.
Time it.
You time it over there. Job, you time it over there.
You want to time it? It's up to you. You can both time it at the same time.
You time it. He's going to time it. He'll show you the 5 minutes. Let him see the 5 minutes.
I'll hold it here so you can see.
Alright.
Okay, so
now it's very important. Fine, we got it.
Okay.
It's important to know here, the 3 examples he gave. Number 1, the embryology, which we spoke about in detail. That there are 2 readings. One of them implies simultaneity and the other one doesn't. One of them is chronology. And even on the one that talks about chronology, we talked about with references the fact that including bones or azm in Arabic language is the cartilaginous models, which are referred to in Arabic as ghudruf, which according to Fairuz Abadi, he mentions that that's included in bones. So there's no issue here. Number 2, he talked about the earth as being a mahd, the earth as being a mahd. And we said that that was used in the context of a baby boy in the cradle of his mother. It doesn't signify shape, but it talks about function. The function of the earth is facilitative for the human being. It's meant to be from the anthropocentric phenomenological perspective. Number 3, he then talked about the muddy hatta either when Dhul Qarnayn went to the muddy spring. Now he said, فَوَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِئَةٍ. He saw it, he observed it, he found it going into a muddy spring. This same terminology is mentioned in Surah Al-Naml, chapter number, Surah Al-Qasas, chapter number 28, when the hudhud, when the bird says, إِنِّي وَجَدْتُ امْرَأَةً تَمْلِكُهُمْ وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَلَهَا عَرْشٌ عَظِيمٌ رَأَيْتَهَا وَقَوْمَهَا يَسْجُدُونَ لِلشَّمْسِ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ. This is mentioned about when Hudhud, the bird, saw the woman, so it's talking about from the perspective of the bird. So here again, we're talking about the perspective of Dhul Qarnayn. It's something which is clear. Number 2, number 3. So we talked about all 3 points. He then talked about origin of Alexandria. He was right that he is seen as an ecclesiastic church father, ecclesiastic patristic writer, and the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church have not put him as a church father. That's true. That's true. That is true to say that because of something called the origin crisis that happened after his death, in fact, in the 4th century or the 5th century. So having said that now, it doesn't matter because he actually agrees with Origen's hermeneutical method. In fact, all of the other church fathers, with almost no exception except for the Alexandrian school, didn't have the approach that Origen of Alexandria and Philo and others had. So number 3, now we have to ask. This is, he said, I didn't reference it, so let me reference it right now. This is what he says. Origen was asked about the crucifixion. He says the events that have been recorded to have happened to Jesus do not possess the full view of the truth in the mere letter and history. For each recorded event is shown to be a symbol of something else by those who read the scripture more intelligently. This is in his book against Celsus CC, chapter 2, verse number 69. It's also mentioned k-by-h.co.uk, and go to the article that I've written on it for all the references. Having said this now, the issue is he's admitted himself that the Bible is not free from error. And the Quran is making the point that you can't say the book is from God if it's not free from error. Now you have a decision to make. If you want to follow a book that is erroneous by the admission of this man, or a book which at least says it's a necessary, not even a sufficient condition for you to believe in a book which has no errors at all, he doesn't uphold the standard of biblical inerrancy because he knows that's an impossible standard for the Bible to maintain, and he admits candidly that the Bible is erroneous. And I may add, he didn't answer anything I said. He didn't talk about contradictions, the internal contradictions of the Bible, that in Origen's understanding and other people's, that even the Midrash confused. Why is it that it's mentioned that the luminaries were created on the 4th day, and that the sun and the moon, that the night and day were created on the 1st day? Why is it, how could you have, from a scientific perspective, the plantations created on the 3rd day and the sun created on the 4th? What kind of photosynthesis will take place? Now, how can you have plantation on the 3rd day on Genesis chapter 1 and in Genesis chapter 2 verse 6 no plants has sprung up yet? So here you have contradictions within the text. You have contradictions outside the text. So contradictory is it that even the ecclesiastic church writers like Origen of Alexandria here admits it, and that's why he had to allegorize it. But if you do that, then you must allegorize other things that he also allegorized, in which case you are in a hermeneutical dilemma, and it becomes a mythological tale that is no different from Greek myth or Hindu myth or anything else. If we start allegorizing one thing with no precedent, or at least aberrational precedent, then we must allegorize anything we want, and that is the situation he finds himself in.
Okay, right, let me reply to this. Because again and again and... Oh wait, are you ready? No. Okay, go. So again and again and again, hijab here creates a false dichotomy. He tries to tell you that you have to believe in Genesis literally. The early church fathers don't teach a literal interpretation of Genesis. So we don't need to defend the Bible literally. And so these problems that he's talking about are not there, because it's dependent upon how we interpret them. Don't interrupt hijab. Don't interrupt hijab.
Who doesn't do it?
Pause. Right, don't interrupt.
Who doesn't?
Don't interrupt.
Apart from Origen.
I know we didn't do this to you, hijab. You do this tactic all the time.
No, but I want to.
You do this tactic all the time. It's just a dominating tactic. Control yourself. You're a trained fighter, for crying out loud.
Not really. He is.
Ready? Are you ready? Ready? So, the fact of the matter is the church fathers, he's doing this simply to distract. Brother, don't, please don't engage him. Right. So put 10 seconds back onto my time.
Give him 20.
Stop trying to do this tactic, hijab. It's cheating, mate. You know it is. Right. So we'll try again. So the church fathers don't teach a literal interpretation of Genesis. So he's attacking Genesis based upon the fact, well, how could the sun be there before plants? It contradicts science. When the book of Genesis was revealed, it wasn't revealed as a science lesson to the Hebrew Israelites. It was revealed as a theological lesson to the Hebrew Israelites. It was teaching the Hebrew Israelites that there is no God but one God, and He is the God of the stars, the plants, the rivers, the sea, the land, the birds, the things that crawl, and mankind itself. That's what Genesis is really teaching, and that is how the early church fathers interpreted Genesis. No! We Christians, he said, I teach that the Bible is in error. No, I don't. I teach that every word of the Bible is true, properly understood. And properly understood is not interpreting every word literally. And that is substantiated by the earliest strata of my writers, the church fathers. And he said, it was just Origen. No, it wasn't. Augustine also did it. And Augustine wasn't from the Alexandrian school. He was birthed in Carthage. So again and again and again, hijab lies and has to be corrected. And he's working on the 99-1 rule. That 99 people will not check what he says except one. No, notice he interrupts again. Because this is, yep. You done? Right. So, the fact of the Quran says that the fact the Quran makes these statements that the earth is a bed. Have you seen a spherical bed lately? Stretched out as a carpet. Have you seen a spherical carpet lately?
It's like a robot.
These things are errors in the Quran. No. What will he do? He will argue that these should be interpreted what? Allegorically. Allegorically. That's what he will say. Not literally. Because if we interpret the Quran literally, it's false. But if we use allegorical defense in the Bible, he says, oh, you can't do that. You're admitting that it's wrong. No. He misquoted Origen again. He misquoted Origen again. Misquoting means part of the text out of the text. I have Origen's books. Origen believes in the actual crucifixion of Jesus. I know he does. I've read it with my own eyes. And I will bring those books and we'll debate whether Origen believes that Jesus was really crucified next week, and I'll show you to be a liar. Are you up for that?
Well, let me answer
Good.
that.
Good. Well, let me finish. Let me finish.
Let me answer that.
Let me finish. Because Origen does believe in a literal crucifixion, but he also believes that the imagery of the crucifixion is so full of symbolism that you can pull meanings beyond the literal. And that's really what Origen believes. So he lied about Origen. He lied about the church fathers. He lied about our historical interpretation of the Bible. He lied about the way that we read of the Bible today. And he also lied to defend his Quran. Misquoting embryology books to say that bones grow without flesh.
10 seconds.
Time. 10 seconds. So Origen, are you up for that debate next week about whether Origen believed in an actual crucifixion?
I don't say that Origen didn't believe in it.
Oh, he's changed. No, he doesn't.
Let me say. Okay, it's done now, yeah?
It's done.
Right. So yeah, well done. You actually do have some knowledge. It's good because when we came to Origen, according to Catholic canon, it's definitely, I know that's the case, that they didn't put him into, they didn't, because of the Origen crisis, so that's well done.
But you did say to everybody was a church father.
No, I know, that wasn't.
So if you knew that, why did you lie to them?
Let me explain. Let me explain.
Yeah, explain to me why you lie to everybody.
Not every Christian's a Catholic. I think you are. I didn't know you were a Catholic.
I'm not a Catholic.
All right, but I think you maybe lean in that direction. The point of the matter is the precepts you believe in will not be universally believed in by all Christians, and you accept that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for example, today you argued against biblical inerrancy, and you know that that's one of the keystone belief systems of evangelical Christians.
Okay, so let me reply to that. Mohammed, you're going to be really embarrassed now because we have you multiple times on camera. Say 1 second, saying to all the crowd that Origin was a church father, and you've just admitted also on camera that you knew that he wasn't.
No.
So you lied to people, and this is what the Dawah team do. They lie.
Let's say that he wasn't a church father.
He isn't.
Fine.
He's an ecclesiastical writer.
Right. He's an ecclesiastical writer according to the Catholic understanding. I grant you that.
All of them.
No. I understand that. It's no problem because of the origin crisis. However, what I'll say is this. What I'll say is it's irrelevant because what I'm saying is in the patristic period. When we say patristic period here, we're talking about he falls within that time. And a lot of Catholic scholars, and by the way, the former Pope, I think Pope Benedict, he believed that he should have been a church father. Many are in Catholicism are actually saying that Origin of Alexandria should be seen as a church father.
I'm really sympathetic to Origin.
Yeah, fair enough.
I like him.
That's what I'm saying. So whether that is something that the Catholic Church takes or not, that's something else. Origin of Alexandria, in terms of his allegorical understanding, here's my point. The issue that I was trying to say was that it's a hermeneutical principle.
Yes.
I'm not saying that he didn't or he couldn't read him to believe in a actual crucifixion or an actual resurrection.
Thank you
because
for
R.C. Hansen, when he, I'm not sure, do you know who R.C. Hansen is?
No.
Yeah. R.C. Hansen is one of the biggest Christian scholars of the last 100 years. You should know who he is. He writes against Origin of Alexandria.
Yep.
And what he says is because one of the things that Origin does, he allegorizes the story of the four judges. Okay, and that's because of its genocidal nature and so on.
Yep.
You know this.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, the question that RPC Hansen, his full name, he puts forward is that what hermeneutical principle are you using to allegorize? And that's basically it. It's a bit slapdash. We don't know, like, why is he doing this? When you said about Augustine, that sometimes he does, I sympathize with some of what you said, because what you said is, although yes, he wrote two, by the way, he wrote two exegeses on Genesis. He wrote one called Against the Manichaeans, and the other one is a literal interpretation of Genesis.
And he argues against the literal interpretation.
No, he doesn't do either. There's different. Look, here's what I will say.
He literally argues against the literal interpretation.
I know what you're referring. I've read this, by the way.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. He doesn't, despite the fact that he calls it a literal interpretation, he doesn't have a consistent literal interpretation. I agree with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, but he is contradistincted to someone like Origin of Alexandria.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so Origin of Alexandria has completely, in terms of the spectrum of allegorization, Origin would fit on the far right, if you want to call it that. Would you agree with that?
There's definitely differences between Augustine and Origin, but the point is,
that's what I'm saying.
Right, but the point is Hijab, right?
So the Alexandrian school, in terms of if this is literal and this is allegorical, the Alexandrian school are here, and maybe Augustine somewhere in the middle.
But the point is, right, what we've seen, and the thing is, you've admitted it all on camera, is that when the big crowd was around us, you were saying one thing. Now the debate's over, you're saying something else.
What I'm saying, but I'm saying it in front of the big crowd right here. Look, and it's going
I want to make
I'm doing this for academic honesty.
Wait, if you want to be academically honest, what you shouldn't be saying is that Origin doesn't believe in an actual crucifixion.
No, I'm not saying that.
Which is what you did say 10 minutes ago.
Let me clarify.
And he heard it.
Let me clarify. What because this is a good point, yeah? Whether Origin believed...
I will debate you next week.
I don't need to debate.
Do you accept Origin believe in a literal crucifixion?
Like Paul, the question of, did Paul believe in an actual resurrection?
Of course.
Right, no, but you know that there is a discussion about that. Do you know that?
There are discussions amongst heretics, yes.
Yeah, all right, fine. One man's heretic is another man's... One man's, heterodox is another man's orthodox.
Imam Bukhari being a perfect example.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, Imam Bukhari and Ahmad, all of them.
Yeah.
He's one man's, he's our orthodox, but he's
he was considered a deviant in his own time.
Exactly that. So when we're doing the study of history, we have to try and be objective about these things. So what I'm saying is, on this point of Origin of Alexandria, my point wasn't that he might have rejected the crucifixion outright as a literal thing. I'm saying, like you said,
it literally was though.
It's all right. It's just undone everything
Calm
that
down.
he was saying. It's just
Calm down.
When he was speaking,
We're actually talking about
It's all right. It's all right.
We're talking about
have some respect. Have some respect.
Don't let him go you. Don't let him go you. You know he does it.
Have some respect.
What I'm saying is, what I quoted when Celsus came to him was that when he was, and this is my, let me make it very clear what my postulation is. Okay, I don't want you to straw man because you have a tendency to that. In this discussion today, I said find someone who looked at the Bible, and then you said, then you forgot about the second point of what I said, and you just went with the first one. I want you to understand the argument so you can, if you want to develop Christian products which are strong and veracious, you have to know my argument first, right?
I heard your argument.
No, what? So listen carefully to what the argument is. The argument is not that Origin of Alexandria allegorizes everything, or that he might not believe in the resurrection or crucifixion. What I say is, what seems to be apparent from his works, and I talked about on First Principles, the Butterworth translation.
I have the First Principles.
Yeah, Butterworth. Look in the back of the book. Yeah. Because there's like an appendix section. If you look at that, you'll find that his approach seems to be where something is contradictory or seemingly contradictory, he allegorizes it.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, he done that with Genesis, and then he done that again with the crucifixion. Because when Celsus came to Origin of Alexandria,
He didn't come to him.
what do you mean he didn't come to him?
They didn't sort of come together and have a discussion.
No, now you're being a bit ridiculous. Now, when they spoke to each other, like me and you are speaking to each other right now, right? When they spoke to each other, Celsus is not a Christian. You know that, yeah? Yeah. So when he was doing what I'm doing with you right now, he's debating me. So Origin was expected to provide an apologetic response. When he did, he allegorized. So what I'm saying is, where something seems inconsistent, he allegorizes. That's all I'm saying. And so therefore, from our paradigm, we're saying there shouldn't be any inconsistencies anyway. And even here's what we're saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So let me reply. Because what you've just done is admit that my principle is accurate. Because I said that you've got to judge the Quran from within an Islamic paradigm, and you've got to judge the Bible from within a Christian paradigm. And the historical Christian paradigm is not based upon literal prima facie interpretation. That is the historical, continuous use of scripture from the church fathers to the present. Church fathers today are still doing the same thing. One second. You believe that the Quran is inerrant in all of its statements, but you never addressed the flat earth. And when you did address it, you said it was from the perspective of the people. So kind of the same kind of arguments that a flat earth.
But that's not the same as allegorization.
Well,
you know that.
yeah, but one second. But that statement that you've made about from the perspective of the birds isn't coming from the Quran. That is coming from you as an apologist defending what the Quran is plainly saying at prima facie level.
That's the genetic fallacy, right? Because what you've just fell into is the genetic fallacy. Whether I'm offering an apologetic reply or not is irrelevant. Most of your church fathers, like Justin Martyr, was an apologist. It doesn't mean just because he's doing that what he's saying is wrong. So you're better than that to make these kinds of interrogations. And what I say is, in terms of the perspectival